It's time for one more week of the RotoWire Rundown. My name's Keith Stewart from Read the Line, and of course, I am joined by the one, the only, the three-time award-winning fantasy scribe for golf, senior golf writer from RotoWire, Len Hochberg. Len, it's Olympics week. Go USA. How you feeling after the opening ceremonies? Good start to the Olympics for you, just in general? Are you an Olympics guy? Break it down for me. I'm curious.
Keith, I don't know about you, but I've been itching all year for the rarity of a limited field no-cut event. I can't wait for the competition to start.
Well, I tell you what, I've got some news for you. We've seen a couple of those already this year. So you're already poking fun at the Olympic officials for the lack of creativity that they're showing. Or maybe you're poking fun at the PGA Tour. I'm not quite sure.
I got
Probably
more.
both.
I got
But
more.
just Summer Olympics, real quick. What's one of your favorite events to watch that we don't normally see on TV?
I've been watching a bunch of it, not always with the sound on, been some in the background and stuff, but been watching fencing and I watched the gymnastics. I had no idea there was someone on Earth who was a pommel horse specialist. I didn't know that profession existed, but apparently it does. And so that was kind of exciting to see the U.S. win a medal in gymnastics. And I haven't really been into the swimming too much. The judo or the martial arts got really fierce. So I have been poking around at a number of things, but I'm looking forward to the track and track and field, and I am looking forward to the golf. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the golf because of the field, and we'll get to more of that in a second. But my highlight so far has been on social media, Snoop Dogg calling the badminton. I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm all in for Snoop Dogg doing as much coverage as he can.
Absolutely.
I'm a little tired of Dan Hicks and the rest of the crew. So, with all due respect to Rowdy Gaines and everyone else, to hear Snoop Dogg give it a little bit of culture, in my mind, makes it all the more entertaining. Now, speaking of entertaining, back in Rio 2016 was the first time we saw golf. And when we go way back when, it didn't seem like this was really something that people were paying attention to. It took a little while to gain some steam. When I look back at that 2016 American squad, we've got what? Matt Kuchar, Patrick Reed, Ricky Fowler, Bubba Watson. We've come a long way in 8 years. There's no doubt about that. Now with Xander, Scotty, Colin, and Wyndham Clark, of course. My question is this. With the tight race that we have between Scotty and Xander, and I've been thinking about this as we come into this event, you and I have been touching upon this, like who's going to be player of the year? Who's going to be player of the year? Do you think the Olympics should play a role in all of this? Because these guys are going head to head again against some of the best talent in the world. I mean, this thing at the top of the board is almost another major championship. So where do you fall for an opinion on whether or not, if you and I had a vote going for player of the year, would you include the Olympic results in all this?
Of course, it shouldn't have anything to do with it. And of course, it will have a major bearing if, like Scotty and Xander Schauffele are going at it Sunday afternoon or Sunday, whatever time it is, on the back nine on Sunday, and one of them wins. I think if one of them beats the other in a setting such as that, or even if one of them wins the tournament, he might move to the front of the player of the year voting. I think it's just a natural reaction. We're just humans. We're looking at who's the best golfer. It's hard to separate and compartmentalize and stuff, but really the Olympics should have no bearing on any of this.
Ooh, sometimes we have the rundown and we disagree. And I'm going to have to disagree with you there because at the end of the day, if we're discounting the Olympics because it's not an official PGA Tour event, then what's the Masters, the PGA, the US Open, and the Open Championship? Those aren't official PGA Tour events, but they are certainly significant when it comes to determining player of the year. So it's not all about FedEx Cup points in my mind or the number of wins, but basically on the PGA Tour. If that was the case, then Scotty would have an insurmountable lead. But the fact that Xander's won 2 tournaments outside the world of the PGA Tour, to me, gives him an opportunity to compete for that player of the year. And I think if these guys are going to go head to head in a true 72-hole stroke play format and not some sort of an exhibition with match play or teams or something like that, that is the typical style of play that we see on the PGA Tour, I'd have to include the Olympics in all of this.
I see your point. There are FedEx Cup points in the majors. They do consider it a part of the PGA Tour. If Tommy Fleetwood wins the Open Championship, he's a PGA Tour winner. He's won on the PGA Tour. Um, Sorry, Tommy. But that's not the case here. But you do get world ranking points for being in the Olympics, which also seems kind of off. Although that could be a boon to I think there are 7 live guys in the tournament, including notably John Rahm. So there is that. But there are no FedEx Cup points in the Olympics, and if we want to make it part of the equation, then there should be FedEx Cup points like any other tournament.
Well, it's all fair points. And I guess we'll find out how much of an influence it does have in about 4 days. And then moving forward towards, of course, the FedEx Cup playoffs in a couple weeks and the Tour Championship in about a month. Now, specifically, we need to start talking about Le Golf National, the Olympic competition, the men and the women. The men are this Thursday through Sunday. The women will be next Wednesday through Saturday. It is your typical style 72-hole individual stroke play event. They'll play rounds 1 through 4 on separate days. The field of 60 has no cut. We have representatives from all over the world. When it comes to Le Golf National, this is a golf course we're somewhat familiar with, but not all entirely for most golf fans. Break down the golf course for me, Len. And when you're building your lineups there on DFS, what are the skill sets that you're looking for in players in order to play well and earn a medal here at the Paris Olympics?
Yeah, this course is very familiar to the Europeans. The French Open is played annually at this course for about 3 decades anyway. Has not been played this year as yet, and there are a number of former French Open winners in the field. And of course, in 2018, it was the site of the Ryder Cup. There were 3 Euros from that Ryder Cup who were in the Olympics. It's Rory and Fleetwood and somebody else. And no Americans, though. None of the 4 Americans who you mentioned made that team just as well, since the U.S. got boat raced in that Ryder Cup. But it's kind of a tough course. It's not long. It's narrow. More precision than length, which is probably one very big reason why it was chosen for the Ryder Cup, to move away from the power of the Americans to the more technical aspects of the European players. But narrow fairways, not especially long, water on more than half the holes, some pot bunkers that are sort of links-like style bunkering, although it is not a links course by any stretch. Undulating greens, kind of big greens, 6,500 square feet on average, but be tough to hold the greens if you're not really precise and get it on the right level and all that. Scrambling will come into play. 2 things I'm looking at really. You have to get the ball in the fairway off the tee. And then, the better position you are in the fairway, the better chance of holding the green. But you will miss greens and you will have to scramble. So I think it's a really good test of Olympic golf, and really a good test of golf overall and neutralizes some of the Americans' strengths.
I'll definitely back you up on all of that. And a couple quick tidbits I might add is that I'm concerned about people with approach play over 175 yards. We've got, the 3 par 5s you're trying to hit into. We've got 4 par 3s over 175 yards. And we've got a couple long par 4s. So approach play from, that 200 plus range is definitely something that will help you separate in this field and help you grab one of those medals come Sunday. The second thing is that there's also, with those par 5s, and there's also some very short par 4s, I'm thinking about scrambling. So guys that can score with their wedge inside from 100 yards, whether they've hit it down there in 2 on a par 5 and they have 31 yards to the pin, can they get it inside 10 feet and always make birdie? I mean, I think that all of that's going to add up because there are some tough holes here. And then the third thing I might say is that I think you need a game plan around this golf course. It's a very positional place. You used the word precision. I would use the word accuracy, but in both cases, we're favoring that over length. And as such, there's 30 rookies in this field playing Le Golf National, and all 4 Americans are rookies. Now that, you're talking about number 1 and 2 in the world there. And if you look at the favorites on the betting board, of those top 6 that are under plus 2,000, only 2 guys have played the golf course. Rory's one of them. He's got 2 top 5s here. And the other one's Jon Rahm coming off winning Live London, and he's got a couple of top 10s here. So I think when you're building your strategy for this golf course, while you're contemplating going to other events and you haven't played here a bunch and you're touring the Louvre with your wife and kid or doing whatever you're doing, like I think if you've played here before and you've had success here before, I believe that goes a long way. And those are the factors that I'm looking for. And when it gets right down to it, at the top of the board, like I was just talking about, those same six guys are in that 10K range. So are you favoring experience like Rahm and Rory, or are you just going with the best players in the world, Len, as you start to build out your DFS lineups? Break down the 10K range for us.
Yeah, first of all, I was very interested. It was very interesting to me to see that there were 6 guys out of 60 in the 10,000s. That speaks to the top heaviness of the field and the whatever the top heaviness, the opposite of top heaviness, bottom lightness of the field is on the other end, which we will get to. You know, Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele have passed just about every test this year, no matter the course, no matter the this, no matter the that. And it seems almost impossible to not consider them. I mean, I understand they're like what plus 300 something for Scotty and plus 550 for Xander. The betting market completely different animal than DFS. I think in DFS they have to be considered, and I do like both of them too. And I think we'd all love to see them battling it out for the gold medal on Sunday. Sure. That would be pretty special. But really, the guy I like most in the 10Ks is Colin Morikawa, and he, really fits this golf course beautifully with where distance doesn't matter as much. Get the ball in the fairway, elite iron play, good around the greens. Putting is a little, not to get it off on a tangent, but for bunch of these guys who aren't the greatest putters. Well, if we look at this field of 60, a lot of these guys who aren't great putters week in and week out on the PGA Tour are one of the best putters in this field, because we think of all the lesser guys in the lesser fields from around the world who are here, and it's a wonderful thing that they're here. But reality is that these guys putt probably better than most of them. And so not only does Morikawa fit, but he's the cheapest 10K option at 10,200. So he's really my favorite play on the board.
All right, so let's meander down to the 9K range. There's a guy down there named Tommy Fleetwood. Now, he won the Open de France in 2017, and he's played there 6 times. He also has 5 missed cuts to go with that win. So is Tommy somebody that you're featuring there in 9K, or is there a different name for us?
He is. I do like Fleetwood. I do like Lowry. I think they're both very good around the greens. Lowry very accurate off the tee, playing well, as we saw just a couple of weeks back. Not that the Open Championship really has much of a correlation to anything that will happen this week. If somebody played poorly, like Fleetwood, I'm not going to hold that against them this week. But they both have, an edge of the experience on this course. And, and I think that even though they're in France, I think just the Europeans and the golf fans from Europe will have a rooting interest for these guys more than some of the other guys. And I think that will spur them on as well.
Down in the 8,000s, I'm hearing a lot of Hideki talk. Are you believing the chatter, or are you going with somebody else in the 8K range?
Yeah, I do like Hideki because he's, one of the great ball strikers, and probably, I think all season long, the leader on tour in strokes gained around the greens. We talked about the need to scramble this week. Bitter disappointment for him 3 years ago, trying to win an Olympic medal in his homeland, and he lost in that amazing 7-man playoff. That would be wild to see something like that again. I don't know if he has unfinished business in France. I don't want to go so far as to say that, but I think it mattered to him 3 years ago. I think it'll matter again. Corey Connors is probably really one of the more popular names I've been hearing about. And, again, get the ball in the fairway, get it on the green, really accurate ball striker. We know his putting is not great, but it's actually been a lot better over the past 2 months. He's moved up from like 162nd or 160 something in putting, strokes gained putting, to into the 120s. And like I said, take some of these lesser guys, maybe the bottom 15 or 20 guys in this field, and he's better putter than just about all of them, and some of the others as well. So he's at the top of the eights at 89. I think he's going to be a pretty popular play.
Now, you mentioned the Europeans getting some continental support. But how about a guy that's from France? Down in the 7K land, I see Victor Perez. He's had some good starts lately. He was very good at the Scottish Open. Do you see one of the French guys, either he or Pavon, but Victor's down there in 7K land, right? Do you like that play in 7K, or who do you like in the 7,000s?
Yeah, to go with my heart over my head, but not completely. I do like Victor Perez. You got to pick a Frenchman, and I do like Perez. I mean, not only did he play well at the Scottish Open, which was a hard course, he's also, you mentioned, playing well on the PGA Tour. He was 12th at the Memorial, a tough course. Guys who play well on tough courses, I think this will be a tough course. The over-under that I saw on golfodds.com, 13.5. So they're not, and they're not expecting a whole lot. Although the course record holder, 16 under a couple of years ago, Guido Migliozzi of Italy, he won this tournament 2 years ago. He's playing very well now, and so I like him in the 7,000s. He's a recent winner on the European Tour. He was runner-up on the European Tour. Both win and runner-up in the past 2 months. Thorbjorn Olesen. He has been on the PGA Tour this year, has not had the greatest season in regular tour events, but he made the cut in all 3 majors that he was in. I know there's no cut this week, but it speaks to playing well on difficult courses. He even has a win on the DP World Tour way back in January. So very Euro-centric flavor in the 7,000s.
So we have those 6 guys at the top up there in 10K plus land. So we've got to find some options down here in 6K. We don't have a 5,000s range this week. So with a field of just 60, we've got to find some value down here below 7,000. So in the 6,000s, who do you like?
In the below 7,000s, we're going to go below the equator. Emiliano Grillo, who has played in the Olympics before. I don't think he played last time, but he played in the original one in 2016. I know it's really not the original one, but we'll call it that. I do, good ball striker. Again, looking in the 6,000s to get a good floor, and he is one of the better players in the 6,000s. A lot of the lesser guys from tours around the world, not to disparage them, but they're just not on the same talent level. They're in this range. I think you can find good value with Grillo on this course, in this field. And way down at 6,200, my super value play. Always like to give one for someone who needs doesn't have much money left to fill out the 6th guy. Fabrizio Zanotti, who sounds wonderfully Italian, but he is from Paraguay, and he is one of only 4 guys to have played in all 3 Olympic Games. And he is, he's 41 years old. He was his country's flag bearer for the opening ceremony. So I think that will pump him up a little bit. That puts a lot of pride on your shoulders. And, and he's played decently on the European Tour and DP World Tour this year. Not great, not terrible, but he's my favorite play, sub 6,500. He was 15th in 2016, 35th in 2021. You don't want the T35, but that's still an improvement on a $6,200 golfer.
All right, well, I'm going to borrow a little bit of that methodology as I get into my betting leans. The first one I'm picking is a flag bearer as well, and he did it for his home country of Ireland. I love a little Shane Lowry this week. I know you mentioned him earlier because of his accuracy off the tee. Getting it in play off the tee at Le Golf National is going to be a huge part in playing, towards success and earning one of those medals. 6th at Troon, 9th at the Travelers, top 20 at the U.S. Open, 19th. And I feel like one of the biggest questions this week is, what is your motivation for being there? Is it to play it as an exhibition, or is it to really be inspired to want to win a medal? Is this really important to you? And I think back to when Shane won in Ireland at Royal Portrush, the Open Championship of 2019. He really embraced that environment, and he got fired up by people cheering for him and pulling for him in his home country. And we know, famously that Rory, he kind of succumbed to the pressure, his own personal pressure in that moment. So I feel like Shane is the type of guy who's certainly been playing well enough lately in order to earn the gold medal. But there's no doubt that I also think that he embraces that environment more so than a lot of other players. And his motivation would be such that, like, he would live for being a gold medal winner and being an ambassador for that moment. So he's definitely one of my leans in this very, very top heavy field. And the other one is going to be Tom Kim. And he's sitting there at plus 2,800. And he's come down significantly from the low threes. So you know that a lot of people feel the same way that I do. And what's most interesting to me is that Tom Kim has been preparing for this moment for over a year. And what I mean by that is that this guy is a superstar talent on the PGA Tour. He's 22 years old. At some point, being from South Korea, he faces mandatory military service. And in doing so, the only way he can get out is a gold medal in the Asian Games or any kind of Olympic medal. Well, last fall, he traveled over and played in the Open de France and came in sixth here at Le Golf National. And when he was asked at the time, like, why are you here? Right? You don't need to be here. It was right before he went and won Shriners. He was in good form and he came over and he's like, well, this is a scouting mission for next summer. I mean, he willingly admitted that that's what he was doing. So if he was thinking about this tournament that long ago, then we don't have to question his motivation this week coming in. We just have to question whether or not how much money we want to put behind him, because we know that winning some form of a medal in his mind is the only option this week. And then that's the mission that he is on.
Good point. I did not connect those dots, and that is I fully expect that to hear stuff like that from you. So very smart play right there.
All right, I love it. And speaking of connecting the dots, we're going to connect tours next week because we have a week off from the PGA Tour right now for in or honor or let the guys go over and play in the Olympics. But next week we get back to the Wyndham, FedEx Cup points, top 70 cutoffs, top 125 cutoffs. The rundown's going to have it all for you. We might even touch a little bit upon the ladies playing Olympic golf starting next Wednesday. So join us every Tuesday. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. We have the award-winning fantasy writer right here at my right-hand side. That my man, Len Hochberg from RotoWire. It's the rundown, 11:15 on the East Coast, 8:15 on the Pacific time, Len's time. Len, a pleasure to have you. Go USA.
Enjoy the golf, Keith, and everyone else.